something, you're supposed to listen. And this morning I thought, what more would be more blessing than for Jim to share his testimony, to tell us what God's done in his life. Jim and Mary have been a part of this little mission for close to 20 years. And you don't probably know it, but every couple of months they send a beautiful gift for us to have here to help with the beauty of our church. So, Jim, just take 2 or 3 or 4 minutes and tell us what God has done for you in your life. Right here where we can all see it.
All right. Well, thank you, Patty.
Just from your heart, dearest.
Patty reaches over and says, how do you feel about spontaneous testimony? Say, well, I'd rather have a little time to prepare.
No time.
Anyway, I thought I would share with you just briefly Mary and my experience going through Hurricane Harvey and the flood. We live in the Houston area, and we heard that Harvey was coming and it was going to be a monster storm and hurricane. And so we did our due diligence. We bought batteries and we bought food and we bought Gatorade, and we thought so-and-so will probably flood and they'll need to come stay with us and we'll have plenty to share. Well, as it turns out, our house was one of the first to flood. We lived near a reservoir and they opened the reservoir up, and it just took our house. We were watching a movie and we had kind of an inkling, well, let's go outside and see what's going on before we go to bed. We walked out in our front yard and we could see the water coming up from the bayou. So we hopped in our cars and drove them to Kroger's, spent the night on the Kroger's parking lot, came back the next morning to about a foot of water, and just rain and storm and thunder and lightning, and warnings were going off on our phones and watches and everything. So we grabbed what we could, threw it in one of the cars, and sought shelter at Mary's daughter's home. And so that's where we stayed for a while. And it all happened so quickly. And when I had the time to think about it, I said, wow, God, usually you take better care of me than this. This is quite a surprise. And we had prepared to be a help to others. But, that was a moment of weakness, I guess. And Mary and I talked about it, and we said, well, we're just going to trust in God. And what we're going to do, no matter what else happens, is we're going to come out of this as good witnesses for the Lord. Whatever else happened. And so before it was all over, we had 5 foot of water in our home that stayed for 10 days. And 95% of everything that we owned ended up on the curb, piled, up at the street. And at that time, there was a song that had just come out, and it was called Even If. And maybe some of you remember that. The lyrics go, I know you're able, and I know you can save through the fire with your mighty hand. But even if you don't, my hope is you alone. And that became our mantra through all this. That was our motto. And so we just stayed in the Lord. We trusted. Things didn't look good for a while. But then eventually it turned out great. We were blessed beyond anything we could imagine. We had flood insurance like almost hardly anyone had in Houston, but we had it. And we collected on that. We were able to sell our property and what was left of our home to an investor. And we took that money and we bought a brand new house in a nice part of town. And when it was all over, we were above and beyond where we even started. So it was probably the worst tragedy of our life up to that point. And thanks to God, thanks to the prayer of family members and friends, we came out on the other end better than we could ever imagine. And so that's my little testimony. And once again, I thank you for making time for me to share. And thanks, Patty, for inviting me to.
Thank you for sharing.